MILIO is the newest support champion to hit the Rift, and he has some new unique abilities that make him so much fun to play. So here's a quick guide to help you guys get started. Now MILIO is a fairly straightforward support to pick up and learn, but he does have some really impactful abilities. For example, his ultimate gives him the potential to cleanse his entire team. MILIO has a lot of utility with his heals, shields and slows, but he does lack some CC of his own. He is pretty reliant on his AD carry, his roaming isn't the best, and his enchanter playstyle is definitely more focused around buffing and boosting his teammates. If his enemies don't have too much CC, his ultimate is basically just a heal, so you can already see how his impact can change in different drafts. So first things first, let's go over MILIO's new abilities. And you'll be happy to know that this champion is fairly straightforward compared to some of the more recent releases, but he does have some intriguing parts to his kit. MILIO's passive makes his abilities enchant his allies on touch, making their next spell or attack deal a burst of extra damage and burn the target too. Pretty simple. MILIO's Q kicks a ball that knocks back an enemy. When the ball hits, it bounces behind the target, damaging and slowing enemies in the area. His W creates an empowered zone that follows the ally nearest to the cusp point. This zone heals teammates, but also uniquely increases attack range for those inside. This can be so much fun to play with, and you can actually allow your AD carry to hit towers without even taking damage. MILIO's E tosses a shield to a teammate, briefly increasing their movement speed, and this ability has 2 charges. Now finally, we've got the most exciting part of MILIO's kit, which is his ultimate. He unleashes a wave of flames that heal and remove crowd control effects from all allies in range. Yes, this is a team-wide cleanse and heal. Finally, we have the perfect counter to those big wombo combo comps. Now before we go over his build and runes, don't forget that these change pretty often as items and champions get buffed and nerfed. So if you do want to stay up to date with this, check out our desktop app which shows you all the optimal builds based on win rates, what's most popular, and what the pros are using too. Just click the link in the description to see it for yourself. For MILIO's runes, we'd advise going for the sorcery tree, with Summon Airy, Mana Flow Bland to solve some of his early mana issues, and then Transcendence and Scorch to finish. For your secondary runes, Inspiration or Resolve both work fine. And in this guide, we're advising Bone Plating and Revitalize for some extra durability and improved healing and shielding power. For your skill order, you want to max your E first to improve its shield and movement speed boost. After that, go for your W to increase its heal and bonus attack range, and finally put the rest of your points in your Q. Moving on to the items now, and for your mythic item, we'd advise either Shurelya's Battle Song for its movement or Moonstone Renewer for its improved healing and shielding. You're also going to want to get a Spell Thief's Edge and work on turning that into a Shard of True Ice. After that though, there are quite a few options depending on the game and what champions are in it, but generally speaking, you're going to want to build as much utility as you can. Ability Haste is a big deal for enchanters like MILIO, so you can't go wrong with Lucidity Boots. After that, you want to focus on items that are going to improve your healing and shielding. Ardent Censer is fantastic if you've got a hyper carry in your pocket, as you'll boost their attack speed and damage. Staff of Flowing Water is great if you're partnered up with a couple of mages, and Redemption is just going to provide so much utility with its team-wide heal, plus a huge boost to your healing and shielding power as well. Chemtech Putrefier is also a great shout though against comps with plenty of sustain, as that Grievous Wounds can be clutch. If you are struggling with mana issues, an early tier into Archangels can be great in the right games, and Azonia's Hourglass can also help out with its huge defensive cooldown. Aside from that, don't forget about Vigilant Wardstone for that extra vision control too. Let's move on to matchups now, and MILIO works best into lanes that he can disengage from and then punish afterwards with his long range buffs and movement speed boosts. Skill shot based champions are less of a threat for MILIO, and any support champions that he can knock back with his Q aren't going to be as much of a problem. Try to bait enemies' abilities and then turn on them afterwards and make use of the extra range with your W to really punish them for it. MILIO does actually have quite a few difficult matchups though, and that's because his 2v2 potential isn't quite as threatening as a lot of other picks, and he relies heavily on his AD carry to function. Now he is weak against long range poke, but he really struggles with hard engaging initiators, especially those that he can't get rid of with his knockback. Try and save that Q to shut down any engages and keep your AD carry healthy with shields and heals as much as you can. MILIO works best alongside marksmen who can benefit from his buffs and boosts to do their job even better. Extra points if they have their own CC to mitigate some of MILIO's main weaknesses, but generally the extra range that MILIO grants can make some AD carries stand out above the rest, especially when partnered with his passive damage too. In those early levels, it's all about trading alongside your AD carry. Now your abilities will boost your marksman's damage due to your passive, and the extra range buff from your W can help win a lot of early fights. Your E's shield usage will be crucial as well though. You want to try and time this so the burst of movement speed can be used optimally to escape incoming fights. Your Q is going to be the tool you use to dictate the lane phase. Now if you're playing against supports with dashes and engage, you're going to need to save this at all times to knock back them and cancel their attempts. If you're playing against poke or enchanting champions, your Q can be used to start fights or just disrupt them throughout. Just remember though that you are very fragile and you need to be careful of enemies focusing you first. You're going to need to be alive to be able to buff and boost your AD carry, so don't get too overconfident and get yourself caught, as you're an enchanter after all. Another thing to remember is that you do burn through some mana in the early game, so don't over spam those abilities. Once you get level 6, your 2v2 and early teamfight potential is now so much stronger. It's a team-wide heal and cleanse in one button. So make sure you time it right to have maximum impact. This ultimate can completely decide those early dragon fights, so be ready to pop it at the perfect time. When it comes to team fights, this is really where you shine most, but the most important thing to remember before anything else is to be really careful of your positioning. Just like other enchanters, you have so much to offer in your ultimate and your utility, but if you get caught out by some hard CC, you're going to get bursted down super quickly. Always try to keep your allies and especially your AD carry buffed up with your W and your E. The shield's movement, the heals, the extra range all can be super strong when kiting and navigating fights. So keep on your toes and really embrace that enchanter playstyle. You'll need to be a little bit more careful with the usage of your Q as it's your only form of CC. You can peel with it, you can make picks with it and interrupt enemy key abilities with it. So avoid throwing it out on repeat and just wasting it. Your ultimate is definitely your biggest team fighting strength though. Ideally you want to sit just behind your teammates to avoid getting hit by CC, because if you're locked down then you can't press R. Wait for the right time, then pop that ultimate and cleanse and heal all of your allies. This ability's usage is more than enough to decide that big late game team fight, so make sure you're pressing tab, checking enemies' abilities and being ready to go. Finally, remember to use those summoner spells and item actives too. Due to your enchanter itemization, you'll often have big utility cooldowns in your build too. So don't forget about that redemption use even if you're already dead, because every little helps. Thanks for checking out our guide all about the newest champion MILIO. We hope you enjoyed this video and hopefully it gives you everything you need to know to get started. Don't forget to check out Mobalytics to stay up to date with all the best MILIO builds and routes, and make sure you're always playing him properly. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. Take care.